World of Tanks Bot Detection. I'm going to tell you how to detect bots in a video game like World of Tanks. I'm not going to tell you how you would do it. I'm going to tell you how World of Tanks would do it. And it's based on this video by Quickie Baby, which he posted today. So first of all, the safest way, you want to make sure that there's a pattern of behavior. You can't look at one game and say it's a bot and then ban the player. So they can't take any action based on one game because, you know, you can forgive people, for example, and you don't know that it's a bot. It could be anything. So you have to see a pattern of behavior. So there's got to be a minimum number of games that a person has to play as a bot before you even look at it. And is that minimum going to be 100? 100 could be 1 day of gameplay. But are you going to ban somebody because he ran bot software over the course of 1 day while he's sleeping? You know, they're going to say, well, we're not going to ban a guy because he did that. So they're going to say, well, we have to have a larger minimum. Let's say 1,000 games. But then you're going to say, well, there's guys who've done it 100,000 times or 10,000 times. You're going to look at the ones who are the worst case scenarios. So the guy who has 1,000 games running bot software over the course of a week or two, he's probably going to be checked last. If he stops running the software, then they're happy. A bot player who doesn't run the bot program meets their requirements of not playing bots. So if he voluntarily stops playing, there's no reason to punish him. 1,000 games is about a week or two worth of gameplay. If a person plays 1,000 games and then a year goes by, they're not going to look seriously at that account because he voluntarily stopped playing. So then you're going to have a curve. I'm not going to look up a graph. You know what curves look like. There's something called slope, where the slope is less than 1, and then the slope becomes 1, and then it shoots up dramatically. The worst case scenarios are going to be the top 10% of bot players, which means they're not going to go after every bot player. They're going to go after the top 10%, the top 20%, and those guys probably are going to be tens of thousands of games or more. In order to do that, they have to collect that data. So that person has to play those games before they examine it, because it doesn't make sense to examine it in real time because it's low priority. A bot player is low priority. Marks of excellence is high priority. They're going to calculate those statistics every 2 weeks. Mastery badge, high priority, they calculate it per battle. Something like bots is low priority. It doesn't impact the player because the player is running a bot. You know, the player's getting what he wants. And other players don't notice it enough or complain about it enough. So they're going to say it's low priority, which means they're not going to check very often, and they're not going to check in real time. They're not going to check per battle for bot behavior. There are some tests that they do. However, they're going to look for that pattern. They got to collect the data. Now, you don't want to collect the data on the live server, on the game server, because it will interfere with the gameplay of the other players. Because you have to run the query just to select the data prevents the game server from selecting other data related to gameplay. So they have to back up the database. Let's say they back up the database once a day. They probably have a log file for all the database queries. And then they do... Maybe they mirror the database, they replicate the database, and then they do a dump, which takes it and puts it into a file. And they save that file, and they save the log files. Log files are saved in case they have to restore a part of the database. And then what they'll do is they'll take that database and they'll put it into like a development database that the players don't access. And then they're going to go through that looking for bots. But the question is, are you going to look through 10 years worth of data? No. You're going to look through a month worth of data, 3 months worth of data, a year's worth of data. You're not going to be if someone runs a bot in January and then runs it in June and then runs it in December and meets the threshold, he might get excluded because they might not check a year's worth of data. They might only check 1 month of data. So then they're going to pick that time frame, and they're going to check that data for bot behavior. So it's going to be a small amount of time. You're not going to check forever in time. You're not going to go back 10 years worth of player history. You have to forgive people for what happened many years ago, because chances are they're not running that software, or the players aren't playing anymore. There's so many reasons just to not check that data. The other thing they're going to say is that people are going to run bots when there's something to win, like a prize. So they're going to wait until after holiday ops is over. They're not going to check during holiday ops. So if they do a database backup during holiday ops, they're not going to use that database to check for bots. They're going to wait until the event is over. Once the event is over, whether it's a marathon or holiday ops or ranked battles or onslaught, anything with a big prize, the event's over, they're going to take that backup. They're going to go back as far as they want, probably to the beginning of the event, and then they're going to use that to check for bots. The smart thing to do is going to be to remove data that you know is not a bot. There's some players that you know, based on their behavior, isn't a bot, so you remove them all. For example, well, there's like you could have bot detection and you could have authentic player detection. So then they're going to look at the bots, and they're going to look at who played the most games, right? 1,000 might not meet the minimum, but let's say it does. They're going to look at the ones who played the most games, and then they're going to examine their stats. The stats is the easiest way. You don't want to look at the replays, because it's just going to be too much time crunching data. And I'm not saying you don't do it, but I'm saying that the stats is going to identify a bad bot that doesn't play well. So they're going to go through all of the stats and say these players are likely bots, and they're going to be able to identify them, and they might automatically ban them, or they might manually do so. But because it could potentially be a lot of players, they're probably automatically banning people. And then they have the option of going through a replay, because people are going to submit replays and they're going to say, I think this is a bot. They could manually look at a replay. When you look at a replay, you're going to look for erratic behavior. For example, when I move the mouse, I move it smoothly, but a bad bot is going to move it erratically. It's going to switch between two values repeatedly when a person won't, which is why you see the erratic gun movements. The other thing is, bots might behave in the same way every game. They're going to look for that bot detection in the replays. So, as a matter of efficiency, I don't think that the bot detection is broken. It seems like they only make announcements a few times a year, 2 or 3 times a year, which means they're probably only checking 2 or 3 times per year. And it's like I said, they're not going to check per battle, they're not going to check per replay. They have to collect all the data, they have to wait until the events are over and collect all the data, and then they need maybe a couple days or a couple of weeks to go through all of the data, and then they have to have a person sign off on it, review it, make the announcement. It could take 6 months for a bot player to get caught. That's what happens with bot detection in a video game such as World of Tanks, and obviously in other games. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.